So I hope all of you are enjoying this session and the talk so far. The previous one, particularly, I enjoyed a lot. My team typically gives me this task of kind of moderating or running the pre-lunch session. So I'm the thing that is, holding you from the all-important lunch. But we'll try and make this interactive and, insightful as well. I'm joined by, experts in their own space, but more importantly, enthusiasts in the space of inclusion. So I think only is apt if we start with a quick round of introduction, then we get talking. Oops. No, I don't think so.
As a staff vice president and center head for Gurugram for Legato, which is one of our captive for one of our largest US healthcare insurance providers. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Devyani. I'm from Intel India, the DEI leader, as well as the HR lead for the sales and marketing group. Pleasure to meet all of you all here.
Hello everyone, I'm Indu from Dell Technologies, and I'm part of software engineering group under the supply chain umbrella, and I'm a D&I lead for APJC region.
Hi everyone, my name is Linika. I manage the inclusion charter at NASSCOM. Thank you.
Awesome. So I'm going to start with the basics, right, of we're talking about collaboration and partnerships. My first question is Linika to you. So you're from NASSCOM, right, and collaboration is core to the organization. So in essence, with respect to IED or I&D, how are you thinking about collaboration and why collaborate, right? A lot of organizations start with, hey, let's do stuff for our own organization, but can you throw a little bit more light in terms of why should organizations think about collaborating?
I'll start without the IWD agenda. I think why is collaboration very, very important. So I've done about 20 years of banking and last 6 years with NASSCOM, and I'm really thrilled to see how this whole ecosystem of the tech industry, right, including Zinnov and partnership, the way we collaborate with the industry and the changes that we are able to bring about, collaborate with the government, collaborate with the industry. On the whole IWD agenda, inclusion agenda, DEI agenda, I think the agenda is so vast. I mean, I kind of sometimes struggle that 12 hours, 14 hours that I'm working is too less for this agenda. If we do not collaborate, I think achieving results for us will be very, very difficult. For example, I heard Intuit in the morning. I was very keen to hear SAP, Microsoft. We are all here to pick up things, right? So what are organizations doing in their respective spaces? So from an inclusion agenda, I think collaboration is a must. And as an inclusion leader, I'm really watched out internally to say, is she collaborating? So it's a difficult one though, yeah.
Thanks, Ninika. Devyani, my question is to you. So, okay, collaboration is important, we need to start, but what's the tipping point, right? So when do organizations start thinking about collaboration, right, rather than focusing only in siloed fashions?
Sure. So let's talk data, right? I mean, all of us in this room are focused on D&I. There's no reason for me to give good justification or a business imperative. We all understand it. Look at India as an ecosystem. We are almost half and half in population, and I'll pick the most basic gender diversity, women here. We are 48% women, we are 52% men when we are all born in India as an ecosystem. By the time women reach the workforce, they're a quarter. We're 25% as an industry, right? That itself shows you that by the time the whole journey of diverse folks joining the workforce halves or becomes a quarter. Now, when I look at that, the imperative that we see here is how and where are the gaps? So Intel will be doing great things in D&I, NASSCOM would be doing it, Intuit will be doing it, SAP. All of us are trying to push the needle in our own organizations. But if we don't come together as an industry and harness each other's potential or best methods that we are utilizing, we're not really going to move the needle. It's been a decade and we're still at the same percentage of women in workforce. And I'm only talking about women. That's like the most basic gender diversity, right? Not about LGBTQ, PWD, any of veterans, none of this. So that's a glaring tipping point in your mind where we're still not pushing the needle. And the logic is that if you have academia, which is a funnel for your talent, if you have industries which are doing great work and we partner together, if you get in government, which is actually one of the most influential places where you will actually bring in policy or program changes, if you get those together, just imagine the potential that you will actually build with the change. So these are some of the things that we as an organization have been thinking about and are actually actively partnering with different ecosystems. And again, forget D&I, right? Look at the business. We are all hearing about the chip shortage across the globe. What are we seeing? There's a supply chain gap. And we're actually seeing competitors who literally fight neck to neck for revenue come together to solve that problem. So if organizations who are fighting on revenue and market share can come together to solve a problem that they're actually facing, why can we not get together for a DEI agenda? I mean, it's as basic as that for me.
Awesome. Indu, my question to you is, you come from Dell Technologies, and it's the mammoth of an organization, right? What's the philosophy like in terms of inclusion, diversity, specifically on collaboration?
At Dell, we have a charter called Progress Made Real, and we looked at the 10-year opportunity, what we have in front of us, the challenges in front of us, to tackle the society's most pressing needs. The organization have defined the Progress Made Real charter, which is more to positively impact the society. So with that, what happened was we defined that into 3 different phases. One, to protect the planet, as Devyani just rightly said, I see shortages what we had. So to tackle that, you need to have that inclusive feeling, even with your partners and customers, right? So even we have been educating them on that, and we want them to partner us on that journey too. And third thing is transforming lives, right? Many people need different kind of help. How can we help them on that front? Even that was another thing. It's not just only a charter and a plan what we have in place. We have defined it for 10 years so that we constantly measure ourselves. Even if you go to Dell Technologies website, you can go look at the report. Okay, the progress what we have made for the last 2 years, you can look into it. And we have been educating our partners also to do the same. And we used to even learn from some of those best practices from the customers so that we can refine our thought process in how we can make it work for everyone. And we learn together on that as well. And there was one question about whether the top-up strategy will work or will the bottom-up strategy will work. But definitely to have a larger vision, you need to have a top-up strategy. Many people we have been hearing, right? The leaders should have the buy-in. Only then whatever the work they do, it can get recognized. At the same time, you might need to have that right support in place. For that, you need to have the top-up strategy. At the same time, culturally, we should be able to bring it via the bottom-up strategy, right? Everybody should have a buy-in. Every team member should know why we are doing it. So that's one thing where at Dell, whatever we do, we bring that in front of us. The progress made real, the charter and plan, and what we wanted to do, the purpose behind that. We bring that all together so that we all think and act on a similar fashion. And we have a call to action to our partners as well on a similar thing. So that really helps.
So measurable charter as well as a mix of top-down and bottom-up approach to drive that culture. All right, so we have Pawan. I don't know if you're aware about Legato. Legato is the fastest growing GCoE, not in India, but the world, right? So Pawan, a little bit about that story, and more importantly, when you're growing at such a rampant pace, right, how do you even think about I&D? Because if you're really growing, you really want to get in those, say, kind of numbers done, right? But what's the mindset like?
Yep, great question. So biggest thing which helped us is diversity as our core value. At our parent company, diversity is one of our core value. Knowing that we all were conscious from the beginning of our journey in India, that we need to be mindful to have inclusivity and diverse talent in our ecosystem. And I must admit, it was not easy. When you have a big number to chase, when you know you need to hire 5,000 employees in a year, then keeping the diversity and inclusion in mind was not easy. That is where we reached out to Zinnov 2 years back to partner with them to understand how we can leverage the larger ecosystem in country. One, to attract talent, which will help me fulfill my demand. Second, keeping my charter of I&D at forefront. So I think those 2 things worked very well for us. Partnership with Zinnov, which gave us access to larger ecosystem to understand some of the best practices which can be adopted for us to meet our demand as well as keep I&D Charter on the forefront.
Thanks, Mohan. So by the way, 20,000 people in 4 years, right? And that's the kind of growth we're talking about, right? Okay, so getting into the thick of things, I think what's most important when it comes to collaboration and partnership is, the programs that you're driving, right? And I'd like, some view from the panelists around specifically the programs you're driving in terms of collaboration. Let's start with Indu, you, right? And we were talking earlier, and we were talking about the kind of government-related and college, school-related programs that you drive at Dell Technologies. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So the newest thing what we have done is in the educational sector. So where we have helped with the Association of the Ministry of IT, what we have done is we conducted a hackathon on the educational industry where we have partnered with some of the startups to come up with innovative ideas so that the education can be taken to the diverse places in India. Most importantly, the digital inclusion, right? So digital inclusion is not everywhere. So that's another aspect we wanted to consider in that ideation process. And we have funded and supported them to come up with a creative idea to take that education, digital education, to the wider spaces in India. So that was one thing what we have done. And another one, with the Ministry of IT, there is another initiative with the school children's where we have a program called GCoEs, innovation program. With the rural students, we help them to learn robotics and the new technologies so that they can create some new solutions. And during that process, our Dell employees will be coaching them throughout the process. Like it takes like 6 months process for them to complete an idea implementation. We help them throughout that 6 months process to complete that so that they feel more confidence and they can really complete the project as well. So that's on the school. Similarly, on the colleges, like there are many rural women hesitant to come to the organization and work in a corporate setup. So what we do is like we take them on 1 year internship. We call it as a resident internship, and we offer them the 1 year coaching. Upskill them on technology, upskill them on the leadership, upskill them to work in a big city kind of infrastructure, and we guide them like a buddy process, like somebody was telling, right? Like a buddy process, like we associate them with the buddy so that the buddy can help them, not just the manager. And you have a separate program. We have been talking about the elephant at the back, right? So that's the most important thing. We have not been looking at it like 2 years back, but in the recent time we learned it, okay? Through the process we learned, okay, fine, only attracting the talent alone will not be sufficient. So you need to have a stringent measures to see how you can help them out during their career execution and development process. So we help them on that too. And other than that, like with Government of India, there is another initiative on the mentorship. So we mentor and we support women entrepreneurs to come up with their ideas so that we can mentor and coach them. We even provide some kind of a product bundles for them to accelerate their digital transformation journey. So most to do on the technology area for us, we have been doing it.
Very interesting. Also, trivia that I was reading up was, in the past decade, 5.4 million students have dropped out of school. So it really shows, the kind of responsibility we have as an ecosystem to really get them back, right? Devyani, my kind of question is similar, but I'd like you to focus more on peer-to-peer collaboration, right? Because often a time we keep talking about collaboration, but hardly ever we look at peer-to-peer collaboration. You spoke about the, chip shortage, and that's one of the examples. But specifically on collaboration on I&D initiatives, what have you seen and what have you done?
So long and hard journey, folks, right? Collaboration is a very easy way to put it, but it does take a lot of effort to actually get something off the ground. So we have around 3 to 4 initiatives with our industry partners. One of them is on the Women Returnship Program. This is where we leverage each other's strengths. So VMware's program of upskilling and Intel's program of home to office, which is where you focus on women who want to return back to the corporate, right? So we partner together on upskilling these women who are ready to come to the corporate and then open them up to the industry to get hired. That's one of the initiatives that we're working on, and I can go more deep into it. But another one is for people with disabilities. So we have a consortium, again, with Intel and 7 other organizations, Intuit, Dell, SAP, and VMware, Microsoft, a lot of our organizations, where we are looking at having specific courses in the 3rd and 4th year of education for students with disabilities, and going ahead training them, and then looking to make them part of a regular internship program or even hire them as your regular employees, right? And the reason we're doing this is it's the same talent pool that these organizations are looking at. It's the same talent pool when it comes to diverse talent that we all go after, considering the skills we hire or the kind of programs that we have, right? So if we don't increase the pie, we will be fighting for the same pie. And that's the whole psychology or the mindset behind this. And there are a couple of initiatives. There's one in the LGBTQ space as well, where we have mentors for the community, and we go ahead and mentor them on tech skills as well as, again, leadership skills to go ahead, develop them, and make them part of the workforce. So these are some of the initiatives that I can count on my finger.
Okay, question maybe that's popping up in the audience mind is, how do we join this consortium or this kind of association? Is it open for like...
Absolutely. So it's called Being Wise. You're aware of it, and it's open for everyone. Anyone who wants to reach out, you can just reach out to me right now. We have a website. We have more collateral around it. It's absolutely the psyche behind collaboration cannot be that I want to benefit my organization or I have an internal agenda. If that's the way, then it may not really see the benefit that we're trying to drive. You need to link it to what is desirable in the industry. Where is your organization headed at? And if that's the mindset that you have, absolutely open. Anyone can join it. Bring in whatever works for you, even if you're just nascent and just starting out at this journey, to someone who's very evolved and is doing great stuff. It's across the spectrum.
Awesome. Okay, so Linika, my next question is to you. Again, you're an association, an association, and as a result of which collaboration is critical. I want to specifically understand around the policy advocacy side of things, right? Because if something's a policy, organizations already kind of are mandated and they follow it. It becomes a lot easier, right? So if you could touch upon that aspect.
So I think a lot's already been spoken on the various projects that are happening. Intel spoke, Dell spoke. So as NASSCOM, we have NASSCOM Foundation, which focuses on a lot of projects around digital literacy, entrepreneurship, people with disability, upskilling, LGBT, upskilling, etc. And there are partners where there is government, there is Niti Aayog, there are partners like the industry who are partnering, Google, Microsoft, partnering on some of these projects. Then we have Data Security Council of India. So for example, they are running projects like Cyber Shiksha, which is about skilling women, returning women on cyber security. This is again in collaboration with the industry. We have Future Skills, which is like an online platform for upskilling. This platform allows a lot of member companies to collaborate for their returnship programs. So you could have your own returnship program and use the Future Skills online skilling to upskill, and you merge that with your respective returnship programs. So that's one. We also have a program called W2RT, which basically enables women in technology to get upskilled. This does online upskilling. There are courses available, but it also has an element of mentoring. So there are senior mentor leaders available to mentor. There are a lot of programs being curated, basically working on a lot of podcast stories that we could share on returnship women so that more and more women hear about it. So we are calling this program Women Leading Change. We started something yesterday which is about mentorship. So that's on NASSCOM social media handles, where we've collaborated with the senior industry leaders like Rashad Premji to say, can there be a small cohort to begin with? I was just speaking to her about it. Senior women tech leaders, 15 years plus of experience, a small cohort can be mentored on leadership skills by some of these senior leaders. From a policy perspective, see, there are these 4 acts that exist, right? So there is a Child Care Act, Maternity Act, there's a POSH Act, there's a PWD Act. As and when the time was right, so when the whole POSH Act came, we kind of worked it through the industry, talked about the nuances of the POSH Act. We are still talking about what does this POSH Act mean in the hybrid environment, right? The whole PWD Act, there are governance elements to say, your organizations need to be accessible by the 16th of June 2022. And because of the gap of 2 years, do we need extension, etc. So we work on those policy acts, but from a policy perspective as NASSCOM, what we are wanting to do more and more is starting to influence policies in a more positive way. For example, if you've heard about this whole Karnataka government thing, right, where they've come around with the industry to say they want to upskill so many women. So that's how the policies need to be influenced. We're working with Ministry of IT, Niti Aayog to say, working on neurodiverse entrepreneurship, supporting women entrepreneurship. So that's the stance on policy from a NASSCOM standpoint.
Thanks, Lenika. I don't want to keep Q&A to the end. So if there are any questions, right now we can take them up.
Hi, my name is Rajat. I have a question for you, Devyani. How do you measure the success of these peer-to-peer partnerships? I mean, are there any matrices that you look at, for all these efforts?
Yes, we do. So we actually did an industry benchmarking with Zinnov, and we came up with a silver, gold, platinum metrics for around 9 vectors in diversity and inclusion. And each of them has a number associated with it. And the goal is that the industry takes that as a goal for you to achieve. The silver one is a little lower, the gold is in the middle, and the platinum is way above. So you could be anywhere in your D&I journey. And depending on A, what your organization charter is, 2, also what is the need of the consortium and the country as a whole, you have a goal associated with it, and these are 5-year goals, because we know it takes some time to move actually from a silver to a gold to a platinum. We also don't ask organizations to sort of reveal it if they're not comfortable for whatever reasons that they might have. But without metrics, then these are just good to do events or initiatives, right? So that's the differentiator for us in terms of wanting to build these consortiums and go ahead and try it.
Great. I think there was a question there. Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
My name is Usha. I'm from Society General. So before I ask the question, Faraz, I would like to know what are the best practices you shared with Legato. I think we missed on some of them.
Absolutely.
Okay, the question is to you and Lenika. So there is this whole discussion of what the corporates are doing to increase the size of the pie after people come to the workforce. But to what Devyani said, I personally feel there is a bigger challenge that from at the basic level, there are not enough people entering the workspace itself. So are there any dialogues happening with the education institutes, with the premium ones or the mainstream ones, where we are talking about how they can increase the diversity from that? So, the supply itself starts increasing at some point in time, because over the years we do not see, when we go for campus recruitment, we do not see enough representation, gender. I mean, like the others are very far-fetched expectation for now, where we do not see even for gender enough representation. So is there any dialogues happening on that front as well? Or anything the others are doing, we'll be interested to know that.
So very rightly pointed out, the problem is with the funnel, the representation in the academia itself. Now we recognize that this is a whole educational system challenge that we have, right? And it won't work if we only expect educational institutes to fix this. So it sort of needs to be fixed at multiple levels. And honestly, I believe corporates are the ones that can actually drive this by partnering with them. That's why a lot of initiatives that I talked about were in the upskilling space. One for the people who are just about leaving your 10th standard, and that's where the maximum drop-offs start to happen. To catch that talent and nudge them towards academia and various skills. And you can use industry buzzwords of AI, ML, deep learning. You can use cybersecurity, electronics, whatever suits you as an organization. But that's the discussion that we have, this consortium has with academia. So you have some tier colleges like an IIT Madras that is very interested and pro it. You have IIITB, which is very pro people with disabilities and is looking to increase the funnel. So there are conversations and actual tangible actions that we are looking at, but it's a journey and we will need organizations to have this as one of their agendas. Typically, we see that they focus on internal. Once the population is already there, what do you do for them? But this funnel is where we need to sort of plug the gap. Meenaka, you want?
Yeah, on the best practices side, what we do at Dell is like we hire, when we go to the campus hiring and internship hiring, we hire 60-70% of the women from the tier 2 and tier 3 colleges. So not just tier 1, we get into tier 2, tier 3. So almost at our career entry level perspective, from a diversity perspective, we have a very good number at Dell. So that was one strategy really worked out. Some of our VPs came back and said, okay, you should hire at 70%, and there is no compromise on that. With that, really we could find good talents, and sometimes we go to women colleges to pick such individuals. They may not be at par with some of the tier 2 colleges, but still we help them in upskilling them and provide enough support so that they feel confident about what they do. The other thing would be like the rural and the small towns, where we have to really provide them some kind of support, mentoring, and really tell them about what are the good things can be done and how they can really gain confidence. The kids, right? The school kids and even the college kids from the rural, like we have to help them out. Maybe that could be another way to address that problem too.
And one additional thing which we are doing at Legato, we all understand, like as we grow in the hierarchy, gender ratio gets squeezed up. So what we are trying to do, as Dell is doing, we are also trying to hire more female talent at entry level, and how we are doing it, or how we are going to attract, or how we are able to attract the talent is engaging with some of the women colleges during pre-placement. Even before going to colleges or campus for placement, before placement we are engaging them, giving them some of the, like sharing our insights, having leadership talks on emerging trends, and making them aware what Legato is doing in general overall to have inclusive culture in the ecosystem, which is helping us attract more and more female talent during placement drives when we go to those campuses.
Brilliant.
So, see, as an industry, what we've analyzed the whole gender proportionality principle, and we've said that at the bottom there is that 50%. As we are going up the middle and the top, right? So middle is reducing. In some organizations it's 34, 28, and as we go up it reduces further to 12% maybe. So I think this whole gap that comes into the gender play, right, maternity, relocation and some of that is reducing that middle layer. So mentoring and coaching and the whole returnship program, at least from an industry perspective, has come out to be a bigger problem. Now what we are trying to do, for example, we're working on a research with IIM Ahmedabad. We're basically saying, can we talk to the future candidates about what is the industry wanting to do for them? So the returnship programs, the success stories, etc., so that this gap that we have currently reduces. I think studies are clearly suggesting, and people are saying at the bottom we have people. We are 50% easily or more. But the problem is the gap that gets created because of women leaving for various reasons.
I think also the challenge there lies in, a lot of our organizations focusing on tier 1 universities, and as a result, and we know that the diversity kind of percentages there are not that high. A quick show of hands here actually. How many of you have dedicated I&D budgets in your organization? And not like disguised like CSR budgets as, I&D budgets. Great. Now, how many of you, so if you could keep your hands up, how many of, there was no impact in the kind of budget pre-pandemic to pandemic? Because we know that a lot of companies, they kind of tone down their budgets. Oh, that's brilliant. How many of you actually increased your budgets during pandemic? Brilliant. A round of applause for all of those. Because one of the things that we've seen is, collaboration, partnerships, I&D initiatives, there's a huge commitment on budget, and sometimes business shies away from that. And this is extremely important for us to keep in mind. I know the clock shows me 1 minute, so I don't have time. I have multiple questions, but maybe some last words in terms of piece of advice for any organization that is kind of on or starting their journey on partnerships, collaboration. Maybe we can start with Lenika.
No, see, I don't think I should use the word empathize, but I really feel as inclusion leaders, we have a lot to do. So if we could get the organizations, respective organizations come along, leaders come along, I think that is one key thing. If we can achieve that, then nothing like it. Because this is only achievable if everybody has their hands in. We cannot achieve this as the inclusion or the I&D leaders agenda for sure. And after this whole COVID, a lot of exclusion, a lot of new things around, mental wellness, lots has come about. Even gender, for example, right? A woman who's kind of had a gap of 2 years because of COVID, coming back, not sure is a priority. So our diversity ratios could go bad, and it has to be a leadership agenda. So we need to get our leadership pledge into the IWD agenda. That's that.
Thanks, Lenika. Pawan, how about you? One piece of advice?
Yeah. So, see, if I have to build Ferrari engine on my own, it will take ages. Okay. Similarly, I&D is something where we know we are lagging way behind. So, do I really need to reinvent the wheel from the scratch? No. Leverage the larger ecosystem which is available to us and escalate your journey at the speed of Ferrari for I&D charters.
Thanks, Pawan. Indu, a slightly different question. The same leader who's going on the journey or starting the journey, what should they definitely not do?
They should not look at perfectionism in everything. And they should not be multitasking, is my opinion.
Brilliant.
Multitasking. They should not be multitasking. They don't need to be a superwoman, okay? They can be a normal person, and wherever they need help, wherever they want to delegate, they can delegate.
Very
Instead of
interesting.
being a superwoman. So the the WhatsApp picture on the IW day, right? The Kali avatar of a woman came in. That really disturbed. Initially, I didn't really give a serious thought about it, but after that, I thought about it. Okay, it's like making us like a superwoman. We don't need to be a superwoman. We have many people who help us now. We can be a normal person, and wherever we wanted to be an expert, we can go deep into it instead of just multitasking here and there. Right? We can be. That's my thought.
Very interesting, Indu. Devyani, last word. What should some of the young leaders not do?
They should not do. What we should not do is get bogged down by what else is happening everywhere else, right? I think if you're someone who's just starting off, it gets very overwhelming to see what all is happening in the world and where you are at. Don't get bogged down by that. Start small. It's absolutely fine. Leverage, like everybody here said, leverage what already exists. Play by the strengths. And don't forget your drinks.
With this, we come to the end of the panel discussion. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you so much for joining us, and a big round of applause to our panelists here.